Okay, brilliant. So thanks to everyone who's watching tonight on YouTube for joining us for tonight's fans forum. Delighted to be joined by a panel of people today who'll be taking your questions on kind of all matters around the club. So I'll start from my top left and kind of work around. So we've got Chief Executive Danny Macklin, Chairman Nigel Travis, Marketing Manager Jake Cook, we've got Director Nick Samaka, Director again Cowley Parry, Chief Executive of the Trust Neil Taylor, Financial Advisor Simon Blake, and Director of Football Martin Ling. Hope everyone is well tonight. We'll be going through, as I said, a wide variety of questions that you had sent in already. You can also submit a few live on YouTube in the comments box, and we'll try and get to them as well. We'll get to as many as we can throughout the night. But to start us off, we'll hand over to Chairman Nigel Travis.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. Thank you to our fans for continuing their sterling support. The other night, the attendance was slightly less than we expected, but it was very wet during the day and very cold. And it was obviously a pleasure to be there in person. And we had just about all our American contingent, apart from Rich over this week. So it was good to be there live. And I think the second half was probably the best we played all year. So that was really exciting. And I'd encourage you to come forward with some difficult questions later for us to answer. But basically, apart from our away form, we feel good about the season so far, but we'll get into it in more depth later on. But I'm going to start off with some bad news for us and a great opportunity for someone. The bad news is that Danny told me last week that he intends to leave and set up a new consultancy. He's going to be leaving at the end of February. We as a club fully embrace people moving on, doing great things, but we're very sorry after Danny's spectacular work for him to be leaving. He was the person we recruited in November of 17. If you recall, Marshall Taylor was our first CEO on a temporary basis. He did a fabulous job. Danny came in and has taken this club to a really phenomenal high. Great work on the commercial side. But if you think of the crises as well, he's had to get us through being in the National League, which when I look back was like playing with a bunch of amateurs in terms of their administration. And then we had obviously the very sad events of Justin's passing and the ramifications of that. We sometimes these days forget how difficult that was for us all, me included. And then COVID, wow, never expected that one to come, and it never goes away. We'll be talking about it later. So Danny's done a fabulous job. As I said, when we had a staff call an hour or so ago, I've worked for 50 plus years and I've never known anyone work as hard as Danny. And I'm probably going to miss the fact that I'll send an email US time, 9 o'clock at night, and I'll get an answer because it's 2 o'clock his time in the morning. So I want to thank Danny for his phenomenal contribution to Leyton Orient, his never-ending enthusiasm, his diligence, sticking to the task, his always wonderful disposition, but he's got an entrepreneurial opportunity that we tried to encourage him not to take up, but he was very convinced that he does want to take it up. So people should do what they want to do. And I'm going to talk about another departure when we finish talking about Danny. So Danny, over to you. Anything you want to say to tell the fans so they can hear it from you?
Yeah, Nigel, thank you for your kind words. This is the toughest decision I've ever made in my career. It was my ambition to be a Football League CEO when I had hair back in the late 90s and achieved that objective in 2017. The 4 years have been a roller coaster with the exception of the tragicness of COVID and also Justin's passing. Aside from that, it's been an absolutely fantastic 4 years. The club is in a great position on and off the pitch. And that's due to the hard work of the team, the hard work of Martin. And I want a special plaudits for Martin, as I just said in the team meeting that we just had, that Nigel referred to, on the work. So much goes unnoticed on what Martin does. I'm not just saying that because he's on the call. The support that we've got from our fans, from our sponsors, from the local community is fantastic, and only matched by the hard-working ethic and approach that Nigel, Ken, the rest of the board, new investors, new board directors that have come on board. This club is in an exceptionally great position, and I genuinely believe I'll be watching on as a fan in the very near future at the Brow Group Stadium with a League One club at least. We've got all the platform for growth. The academy is so fruitful. It is unbelievable. We've got record crowds coming through, record season card holders, growing revenues, and we're on the way to a sustainable club. And I want to say thank you to every single person I've mentioned and not mentioned for the journey that we've gone in the last 4 years. Very much committed to Leyton Orient until the end of February, and then look forward to watching, maybe from the South Stand, a few games as a fan, because that is now what I am. I'm a Gillingham fan by birth, but Leyton Orient has got into my blood and will stay in my blood.
Well, Danny, thank you. And with every issue comes an opportunity. And we had a board meeting yesterday, and we've got a spec for our new CEO. And obviously the intent is to build on the platform that Danny has created and take it to a new level. There'll be new ideas, new thoughts. But fortunately, we now know a lot more than we did last time we were doing the search. So the announcement will go out, I think, in about 8 minutes. But we wanted to tell our fans verbally, because there's a sequence to these things. We should tell everyone in the club first, then we tell our fans, then we tell the world, and then an ad will go out tomorrow advertising the position, and we fully expect to have some really good candidates. But they're going to have to be good to do better than Danny. The other one I want to mention is that, and you may not know him so well, but he's done excellent work. He's been with us for nearly the whole time. Is Joe Austin. Many of you won't have heard him, but he's our lead analyst. He came to us right towards the start. Football is very much about analytics, and if you want to have a lesson on analytics, go and see Cowley sometime. But Joe's done a spectacular job, both in terms of recruitment, and it's really interesting seeing how he prepares Kenny's group for the games. And he got an opportunity to go and work with the first team at Manchester City. And that's what life's about. People should fulfill their capabilities. In the summer, we lost a couple of people to Spurs. We also lost one to Sunderland, but Sunderland wasn't as good as Leyton Orient. He's coming back. That's Keaton Patel. So we're going to see Keaton back with us next week. But Joe Austin is fantastic. He's done a great job, and we're going to be making a presentation on Saturday to him, because he really has made a contribution not only to our promotion, but our steady move up the League Two table. So that's getting all the bad news out of the way. So as I said, I feel good about where we are. We feel good about our financial situation. We'll talk about that later. We feel good about where we stand in terms of players, and Martin will talk about that later and encourage you to ask questions. We had a meeting with the council today. Our relationships with the council is spectacular. I'll talk about the Tracy Crouch report a bit later, but that's just a teaser, a lot to cover. So Luke, what do we do now?
Yeah, thank you, Nigel. Well, we'll introduce Martin for the night. And Martin, our next point on the agenda is a summary of the season. So I think from your perspective, if you want to kind of give us a rundown on how things are going. Obviously, a great win Tuesday night and back into the playoff positions. But from your perspective as director of football, how have things gone?
Yeah, I think they've gone well. A little bit confusing at times. You know, if you look at the difference between your own form and your away form, 10 games at home, it's give you 21 points, which is championship or champions form, actually, 2.1 points per game. And away from home, we've only got 10 points in 10 games. So that would take you out of the league of 1 point per game. So the differential between the away and the home is the thing that we've got to narrow down. I do believe that it's within us. Within them 10 away games, 5 times we've been leading in them games, and quite often, a couple of times, going right towards the end. So I don't think we've got the return that we should. And in terms of squad, I think that, we've got a squad that's capable, for me, of getting promotion from this league. We said it at the start of the year, and that's still the aim. I believe that we're in a position after 20 games that allows us to attack from. I've not seen a team yet that, even Forest Green, that really scare me or feel that we can't go and beat any team within this league. I mean, obviously Forest Green have gone clear. Yeah, and the squad is gelled well together. We brought a lot of new people in at the start of the year in terms of players and staff. Staffing is working smoothly. Kenny is excellent on the training ground, which is great. Yes, for me, I can walk away from the training ground when I'm not there, knowing that everything's being done to the finest detail through Kenny and his team. And yeah, I do believe, as I say, we've got a squad. There may be, I suppose we'll come on to it a bit later, but the January market is just around the corner. We've got actually transfer committee meeting tomorrow, and I feel that there's 1 or 2 additions that could add to the squad and make the squad stronger in areas that we need to. But as I say, sitting here today, I feel really comfortable with everything. Feel that we, obviously off the back of the Swindon game, which was a great performance, and at home we've been scintillating at times and scoring plenty of goals. But I don't think that we're far away from turning the away performances into wins. I mean, out of that 10 games, I think 8 of them have been draws. So it's close to being really, really good. It's just really good because of the away form. But I don't think that's to do with anything in terms of set up by management, coaches. I just think it's sometimes the players implementing what we need within them games. And I'm sure the away form will turn going into the second half of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll cover a lot more things in depth in the Q&A, I'm sure. But Nigel, as well, from a board and from a chairman perspective, if you want to give us a brief overview on the season so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think well, I'll start off and say that firstly, if we go back to March, we did our refinancing. We brought on not only Cowley and Nick, but we also brought on some other investors who you've met. We have one of these sessions where you met them all. And just to reiterate, it's our belief that we should be open with you all. We're the temporary custodians of a club that my goal is that this club will be thriving in 100 years' time. I won't be here to see it. None of us, well, perhaps a couple of young people will be here in 100 years to see it. But, we've got a community asset that we have to maintain. And I feel we're making good progress. I think we're very encouraged, as Danny said, by the season card sales this year. And the quick plug, the half-season sales are on sale now. I think clearly we're still in the FA Cup, which is a good thing to say. We haven't been able to say that previously. I think the restrictions that were introduced by the government yesterday will perhaps reduce the attendance a bit at Stoke. So the money that we thought we'd gain from that will get reduced some. I think when you then think about what we've tried to do this season, we've tried to bring in some new fans, but again, it's been difficult because of COVID. And an issue that I think you've probably all noticed is we sell season tickets, we sell tickets and people don't turn up. That is consistent with what restaurants are seeing, what theatres are seeing. We're living in very difficult times, and the government's announcements last night are going to make it even more difficult. I mean, the amount of time Danny, myself, and others, and Martin, have spent on COVID is unbelievable. I mean, I cannot tell you how much time we spent. We had a meeting as early as 8:30 this morning on it, and our meeting with the council should have been 8:30, but got delayed 2 hours because they were dealing with it. So this is overhung has hung over everything. It is, I have to say, slightly ironic that Spurs have had 2 games postponed now. We were the first to go through that. And I think a few people thought we weren't necessarily the most professional at the time, but it affects everyone. There's a team in the US that was in the US MLS semi-finals, Philadelphia Union. They had 11 players and they had to play the game and obviously lost. So we do have some unvaccinated players. We're concerned about that. We continue to try and encourage people to take it. But until it's the law of the land, like Austria, that's not going to happen. I think I need to say, and I think Danny's going to talk about this later, it's not our decision, but there are going to be more restrictions and more mask wearing. But that's come from on high, from the government. We won't talk about parties at number 10, but clearly that's hung over everything. But I feel good. I think we're moving towards sustainability. The Tracy Crouch report, which we will cover specifically, we're looking for your support. We're looking for Leyton Orient Supporters Club and Loft to support it in particular. The EFL have asked us to get everyone right behind it because there is going to be resistance from the Premier League. But we're moving down the right track. I feel very confident. And I just want to add to what Martin said. I feel confident that we're going to have a good result on the field this year when we end up at the end of April, early May.
Thank you, Nigel. And I think that leads us nicely on to the next agenda point, which is to talk about the finances of the club. Obviously talking about sustainability, which is a recurring theme in these calls and in our communications to supporters. So to hand over to Danny and to talk on about the finance side of things.
Yeah, so I think it's important to stress that we as a club, I get joked at about being using the word sustainability. So let's just refresh memories of what we mean by that. We as a club this year will lose somewhere between 1.5 and 1.8 million. Before COVID struck, that was going to be less than $1 million, considerably less than $1 million in our budgeting plan. So COVID has put a roadblock and some speed bumps in the way, but we are on the route to becoming sustainable. Is it going to be quick? No. Is it going to be instant? Definitely not. But we believe that with the fan-led review again, which we'll discuss in a moment, and the movement of the fair game, we've got the best chance and the best opportunity with this board to get close, if not right to break even. Football clubs should be able to be self-sufficient. They shouldn't have to rely on the pockets being permanently emptied of investors and board directors. That shouldn't be the case. So as a club, we're going to lose 1.5 to 1.8 million this year. Next year, that must and will significantly reduce, provided COVID doesn't come back and bite again. But we all play a part into us becoming sustainable, whether that's buying a season card and or buying a shirt, coming to a non-match day event at the Brow Group Stadium, whatever it is, we all play a part in doing that. We've seen some good attendances this year and some poor ones for the reasons we've just given. Jake, who's on this call, obviously along with yourself, Luke, we've got some exciting plans afoot that will be launched in January to really expand upon our strapline of real football in the capital. We'll be doing an extensive mail drop to local residents. It will start with a test and that will be expanded across the whole of Waltham Forest, Hackney, etc., because we want to further grow attendances. That's how one of the major stepping stones that we'll do to get break even.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Moving on to our next point. So we've gone through obviously finance headlines, summary of the season. So next on the agenda was about diversity and inclusion objectives and new focus groups for LGBTQ+ and disabilities. I know there's a few questions that we had in from the general Q&A, so this might cover some of those before we get around to that. But to hand back to you on that one, Danny.
Yeah, obviously this week on Tuesday with the emphatic win over Swindon, we had our rainbow laces, which we're obviously very proud to do our part. But I don't think we go far enough, and that's one of the critiques that I'll take when I do leave at the end of February. But I want to make sure over the next couple of months we're putting the stepping stones in place to us to really, really have an inclusive club, whether that be LGBTQ+ or a disability awareness. We really want to raise awareness of that and focus on that. So we're going to be announcing in the coming days trying to set up some focus groups to really how we can engage with every single part of our community. So we met with the council today and discussed some of those strategies that we're going to put into place. That mail drop will certainly be a part of that. We really, really want to bring to life. I think we've dipped our toe into it, but now we really, really want to chuck ourselves head first into being the most diverse and inclusive football club in this country.
Yeah, thank you, Danny. Just to echo that as well, I think Robbie Minchin, who started recently as our match day activator, he joined a call with the EFL the other day, which was a diversity and inclusion forum, I think a bit of a public one. So he's taken some really, really good stuff out of that, and we've had some internal meetings about how we can kind of take those next steps. So we'll be working hard on that. But yeah, moving on to the next stage, and that's on to quite a big topic, and I know one that Nigel and Danny have been working very hard towards and very hard around it. And that's the fan-led review, and also our involvement with fair game, should I say. So Nigel, if you want to start us off with that one, kind of the club's input to that and our thoughts on the review.
Okay, so we could spend a long time on this, and I'm going to try and summarize it, but one request we've got is we'd like to have a specific meeting with the representatives of both Loft and the Supporters Club to talk about the Tracy Crouch review. The headline is, we like virtually all of it. The EFL likes virtually all of it. And for those who followed it, the second point I made there may be a surprise, but I think the EFL, as I've said to you before, is extremely well led by Rick Parry and Trevor Birch. We had a meeting with them about the Crouch report on Monday. It was outstanding. And the big message is that they want to be very supportive. They want to be supportive when this goes to Parliament in the form of a bill to set up the independent regulator. We're going to get significant pushback probably from the Premier League, as most of you will have read about the independent regulator. And it's quite interesting. This is a very alien concept to particularly Americans. My wife said to me, why is the government involved in football? Well, just to remind you all, this came as a result of the disasters at places like Bury and Macclesfield. But the thing that pushed them over the top was the sudden announcement of the Super League, which of course the fans effectively squashed throughout the country. So this is not a normal subject for American ownership to be familiar with. So what we agreed on the EFL meeting is that we need to do a lot of lobbying with MPs, other people in the Lords, places like the Mayor of London, everywhere. And we've got to make sure that the message, which effectively comes from the fans, is delivered. I'm just going to summarize what's in the report as a lot of recommendations, but we support the independent regulator. I mean, you only have to see the disasters in the last few months at Reading and in particular Derby. So we fully support that. There's a lot of talk about redistribution. The general view is that League One and League Two will do well out of whatever finally comes up. The Championship's a bit more problematic because the Premier League sees some of the clubs in the Championship, and Stoke's always given us a good example because they've got bags of money. They're seen as very competitive. We support the idea of the 10% levy, but apparently that was an idea that came up at a fairly last minute. Whether that actually stays, there will be some form of redistribution, I'm pretty convinced. And I think there will be government action, and apparently the opposition party, Labour, supports it as well. There's some innovative ideas like the trial of drinking in the view of the pitch in League Two and the National League. And by the way, when I mentioned the National League, one of the things that the EFL said to us is we need to be seen to be supporting the National League, because we can't criticise the Premier League if we're not supporting the league below us. 4G pitches, I actually pushed that on behalf of Leyton Orient last year, because I thought it was ridiculous that Sutton and Harrogate had to dig up their pitches to come into the league. Stronger owners and directors tests, and Leyton Orient was actually mentioned as an example of where a better owners and directors test would have been effective. We all know what we had to suffer for 3 years. So we fully support that. There's a lot, obviously, about equality, diversity, better corporate governance, which we support as well. And then there's enhanced relegation clauses in player contracts, etc. I could go on. I'm not going to go on. I think one that the fans would be very pleased to see that's in there is that there's going to be the golden share, that clubs can't suddenly move stadiums or change their crests, which is seen as part of the club's heritage, without this so-called golden share being voted. She also makes the point, which I think is 100% spot on, there needs to be a separate report on women's football. And just while I'm talking about that, that's part of our diversity initiative. And I think under the leadership of Olivia, we're making great progress. So a lot to talk about, could talk about it for hours, but this is good news for Leyton Orient.
Yeah, cheers, Nigel. It might be worth at some point a separate call to for supporters to maybe look at the fair game and fair game initiative and fan-led review. As you say, there's a lot to dissect there, and it probably leads us quite nicely into tonight's Q&A, which one of the first questions actually picks up on one of those points. Just before we start the Q&A, we'll say we've had a lot of questions, and I know we're getting some more on YouTube as well, so we'll try to get through as many as we can in the limited time we have. If there's any questions that aren't answered that you really want a burning answer to, then just reach out to anyone directly at the club, and I'm sure we can answer them. But yeah, just to start us off on the back of that one, and it was addressed to you, Danny. It was about drinking alcohol in sight of the pitch. It's been deemed as a good thing by Leyton Orient, and this was without any consultation with the supporters. A lot of fans are worried about the potential disruption to watching the game with their constant movement of people, the potential of a beer soaking when we score, and the real possibility of increasing bad behaviour due to overindulgence. The increase in revenue that you suppose is surely optimistic, and when contrasted to the potentially negative fans' experience, how can this be justified without consultation?
Yeah, a good and fair question. We do support the trial, and that's exactly what it will be. There's still details to follow. It would be as early as January. I think it might follow a bit after that. But when it will introduce it as a trial, we won't be selling alcohol, most certainly in the North Stand as the family stand. And we'll be working with our pouring rights partner, Green King, to have the sort of, just what I'm looking for, I guess, plastic containers that are environmentally friendly and effectively mean that someone can't end up with a beer tipped over them when we do score another 4-0. So there's an awful lot that we're going to go through. This is a trial that all League Two and National League clubs will be encouraged to do, but there is more detail to follow, and we will gather feedback at all stages, and we will make sure that if there are any pitfalls, that we quickly address those, and say that will be part of the trial process.
Thank you, Danny. Another one for you whilst we have you, and this is again around kind of the match day experience. I think from Les K, and it's about what can we do about parking on match days, as Waltham Forest Council have made so many more roads non-parking areas on match day. If we ever get promoted, this will only get worse.
Yeah, parking is a challenge, as it is across most of the country and certainly within central London. The ULEZ restrictions make it even more of a challenge, but we're blessed with a good public transport network. You know, we're obviously 6-7 minutes away from Leyton Underground, and the reality is parking is very limited. The new build opposite us, I'm sure, which we'll get to, will create additional problems because there's next to no parking that's going to be available even for those residents. So rest assured, we have tried every single outlet, whether it be Spitalfields, the hockey stadium, etc., local schools, local churches. We cannot find the sufficient spaces of car park to enable what we've got. We've lost an awful lot of our parking with the adjacent building of the school centre development, and that has had a knock-on effect. But rest assured, we don't stop. Me and the team are continuing to try to find everywhere we can, but every time we come up against an obstacle, because there just isn't the space for a car park.
Just to add to that, Neil, the score centre is going to have, I think, 750 homes, and I heard, and it may be wrong, so correct me, only like 20 parking spaces, isn't it? Right?
Yes, that's correct, Nigel. Yes.
So that's going to make the situation worse. I don't know what the answer is. So I think this is where we should ask fans for creative ideas, because we've sent, and Danny's done some of it himself, people up and down streets looking. I mean, we've talked, Danny, you've talked to the hockey centre, and that suddenly went cold. I've forgotten the reason.
Yeah, basically fixture overlap, and the reality is that the owners of that are have other fish to fry, but will continue to do that at every avenue, and Neil's helped us on that as well, and we'll continue to for Les and others that need that parking. We'll do everything we can night and day.
So this is a really difficult one, and if anyone's got any wonderful ideas, please help us.
Moving back to on the field matters, and one for Martin. I think we've all been really impressed with Harry Smith and Aaron Drynan, his goal return this season. I think they're on 26 already. And we sent some pretty good stats earlier from our club historian telling us that only twice in Orient's history of two strikers both got more than 20 goals in league and cup campaigns. So with a bit of luck, hopefully they'll be reaching that. But one of the questions, Martin, was from Henry. He's asked, given the previous rather indifferent goal scoring records of those two strikers, what factor made you sign them, and how have they been transformed into such a prolific duo?
Yeah, I think that you look at it, not just myself, but Joe Gallen and Kenny. We looked at, especially Drynan, we looked at his games that he had played, looked at him closely. His goal return didn't merit his goal chances, if I'm honest with you. He was very unlucky. If you look at his record of hitting the post, and his goal return would have been a lot better. We just felt that he was one for the future. With Harry, we just felt that if we could get him to simplify his game, probably, I think for other teams, sometimes he was playing as a lone striker. Kenny's always talked about playing with either two up there or three up there at the start of the season, but certainly not one. A lot of Harry's games towards the end of last season and the season and all the season before, he was a lone striker, which I think takes a lot of potential goal scoring opportunities away from you. We just felt that we didn't. I'm going to be lying if I said we're going to sit here. We're going to be sitting here, in December with both of them on 13 goals this season. But we just felt that there was a goal return there and two good players. Now, if we're honest, we're probably our signing where we thought an awful lot of goals would come from would be Paul Smith, who we've not seen the light of day yet. He's sort of flitted in and out, and that's sort of pleasing for me in the back of my head that we know that Paul. I think Paul would have a big part to play between now and the end of the season. Got to make sure that we keep him fit. So he's on a different regime now. We've changed his training regime, and yeah, look, we see potential in them both. Now, potential is great, but for the potential to come off is even better. But as I say, Joe Gallen he knew Drynan more than anybody, was the big advocate for Drynan. And say between the three of us, we just felt that there was goals within them, and let's hope they continue in the rate that they are at the moment, because let's be fair, they're both on fire at this moment in time.
Yeah, absolutely. And another I'll stick with you, Mike, for one more, and another question, which is probably about 20 people have sent in to me, so I'm not going to name one person for this one, but obviously another one of the summer signings was Tom James. He's been in great form as a right wing back, another assist on Tuesday night. And just a couple of questions around Tom in regards to contracts and if the club are looking to offer one.
Yeah, look, the professional contract situation of we've got 25 professional players at the club at the moment. 3 of them are loanees. Of the other 22, we've got 11 players that run out of contract at the end of this season, and we've got 11 players that run out of contracts at the end of 2023. So that's a nice position to be in. You're not unloaded one way or the other. But Tom is certainly high on the agenda of myself and Kenny in terms of him being at the club longer term than just this season. So we're fully aware of what he's done and how he's performed, and what we deem him to be an important player. And don't panic, because we are fully aware of the situation, and we're fully aware that he's one that we'd like to keep longer term. Now that obviously comes into the occasion that he wants to stay here longer term. I can't see anything that doesn't, from my conversations I've had so far, both with him and his agent. But these things take time, and we're fully aware that Tom. We'd like to tie Tom down to a longer contract. So there's nothing against anything that the fans are seeing. We're seeing the same.
Thanks, Martin. There's a question. We've had a few kind of fall into this category. So this is one for Nigel, Nick, Cowley, and more of the directors. And it's on the back of things continue to go well on the pitch. And if the club were to get promoted to League One and again, maybe the Championship, what plans are there to increase the ground capacity, perhaps a new East Stand? What kind of improvements can be made in the stadium we're in, or perhaps larger field in Waltham Forest?
Okay, well, that's a big question. You should have given me warning about that one, Luke. But anyway, that's in the category of high quality problems, particularly when you started here on the 22nd of June 17. But I think it's a very valid question. It's one the board are very aware of, and it's one that's going to require some creativity. So I could go through this in some detail, but rather than dominate the conversation, I'm going to pass over to Nick and Cowley and ask them if they'd like to answer it. And certainly they sat through the conversation yesterday.
Well, excuse me, maybe I'll give it a start, and then Coley can come up with a smarter answer. It is clear that there are certain elements of our ground that are fantastic, and it's clear that there's elements that will limit us capacity-wise, and the like. And the only way to understand what to do is really to look at both sides of that equation, right? What could we do? And we had some of this conversation with the council this morning, in fact. What can we do at our current site? How much capacity could we add? There may be options with the NHS space. There may be some other options. And so, sort of half of the push is going to be to say, what could the stadium look like? And then alternatively, what are our options? None of us have any desire to do what Wimbledon did and move out, dozens of miles away. But where are there potential places in the borough and in the immediate area? There is an awful lot of redevelopment going on, as you guys have seen, and we're going to at least explore that, right? There's nothing concrete, specific that we've got, but we figure if we push both of these, so we have two good options to compare to each other, and certainly anything to do with a possible new stadium, we would want a lot of fan input into. But we're just, we're aware of the issues, and it's going to take some good hard work to find out the right path going forward.
I don't have too much to add to that. I think that's a really good breakdown of where our thoughts are and where our explorations are going. I would like to say that where the stadium is today, as we move up the pyramid, we will need more capacity, sure. But where it is today is special, I think. Obviously, it's right in the middle of Leyton. But every time that I go to the stadium, walking through Coronation Gardens and seeing the Laurie Cunningham statue, I think is, really, really unique and cool. And I'm very happy with the placement of it right now. So again, to echo Nick, I would say that any new stadium or development of the stadium will require and need a lot of fan input because it's a special place.
Yeah, I think I'll just add that we're doing I think we've talked about this before, but we're doing a lot of work on potential training ground, bringing the academy together and the first team training and trying to put it in one place. And we actually earmarked some money when we did our refinancing earlier this year. So we gave Marshall Taylor the job of masterminding looking for a training ground. He's done some fantastic work, and he actually did a really interesting exercise of looking at all the development in football and all the stadium moves, because we looked at that at the same time, took an average of 10 years. So all we're doing at the moment is saying we could have a problem. And it's probably not an immediate problem, but it's a problem that we hope to have the issue as soon as next year. Because if we're in League One and Derby are down there, how many people, Danny, do you think they're going to want to bring?
I think I worked out when and if we're in League One next year. I think there's 7 or 8 teams that will entirely fill the geoprint East Stand, which poses a problem, but a problem we want to have.
And then I think you take from that, do you redevelop the East Stand? I know we've just done the roof, and to be honest, I pushed very hard for that because it looked awful and it leaked and all kinds of issues. So we recognized that was a good temporary fix. So do we redevelop that? And do we look at what some grounds have done and put a hotel in there? Could we redevelop the West Stand? I mean, there's a lot of options that we could think about. But we have to think about the long term. Remember what I said earlier? We want Leyton Orient to be thriving in 100 years' time. So we have to think hard about this. But the priority is finding the training ground, because we want to keep the young talent to develop for the first team and potentially a few people to sell, which helps the whole financial sustainability piece. So again, this could be a subject for a big debate, but I think that's as open as we can be, that we're thinking about this and we'll continue to think about it all.
Yeah, thank you, Nigel. To go from the more long-term back to the short-term, obviously with news yesterday coming about Plan B in the UK and how this can affect large-scale events. A couple of questions from supporters have been around these recent announcements, what changes we can expect for Leyton Orient match days, and in particular, will the club have any plans to introduce a proof of vaccine status or a negative test for admission to the ground?
Yeah, tomorrow we'll be making clear, having divulged what's come out over the last 24 hours. So obviously yourself, Luke, and Jake will be communicating what's going to happen. In a nutshell, we're encouraging every fan, unless they're medically exempt, to wear a mask in all areas where they possibly can. But absolutely certain as they come into the stadium, as they definitely go into the shop or into the ticket office, and to also wear it in any of the hospitality areas, apart from when obviously they're eating and drinking, to have it in the concourse areas, and encourage people to do what is clearly A, the guidance, and B, is practical and sensible. So because we have a capacity under 10,000, the rules as we understand it at the moment, and the rules as they are at the moment, is that double vaccination pass is not required, or a negative lateral flow or PCR test. Obviously, that is under permanent review by the government and also by the EFL, but the rules are at the moment, to clarify for the Braga Group Stadium, is we're encouraging face masks and to just be sensible to consider your fellow spectators in that. There will obviously be restrictions that apply at other games. I want to stress it's when you're expecting crowds of over 10,000, not if your capacity is 10,000. So I think what will happen, there'll be a lot of teams perhaps in our division in League One that perhaps have 11,000 capacity. We'll just cap it at slightly under 10 so that they don't have to adhere to those additional requirements, which does put a burden on staffing, on stewarding, which is a real challenge at the moment up and down the land for every football club. So
do you want to talk a bit about Colchester, because they've got some processes in place for the away game, haven't they?
Yeah, so Colchester, I believe we announced that we're on sale today to season card holders for that in a fairly short period of around about 24 to 48 hours. They've got some very tight protocols. I went to their game against Newport a few Fridays ago. And yeah, there are different restrictions there. So those fans and especially season card holders that are purchasing the next couple of days, encourage you to read up about how their social bubbles work so that no one gets any caught out. And yeah, encouraging that we'll get a really good number there. The nearest game to my house, so it's very kind that was Boxing Day. And I know you're coming over as well, Nigel. So I think it's one that we will absolutely pack out that corner of Essex.
My daughter hasn't been to a game in 2 years, so she's very excited about going to Colchester.
Staying with you, Danny, we've had a few questions in from Loft. So we'll start with the first one, which was about, apparently we've heard from various members about the ticketing system, with some describing it not fit for purpose. I know there was a few other supporters that have questioned the ticketing system as well, so this is the question that will cover that. The workaround for buying each ticket separately makes the process more complicated and means that family members can't sit together if there's ever an away game of limited capacity. Will we have a ticketing system that works with fans rather than frustrates them, as fans are choosing to buy in person instead?
Yeah, they're fair comments. It's worth giving a short history lesson here. We brought in our ticketing partner just about as the pandemic struck. They were then, not in relation to COVID, but they were then taken over, new management team, new support team, and they've been finding their feet. I think they'll be first to admit that. We've worked very closely with them. We'll continue to work throughout the season with them on making a system that it best it possibly can. We've introduced some guides to make it a lot clearer, and we've introduced via the company a much faster server in the background to speed up the process. Is the ticket system perfect? No. But what we encourage fans to do is if they encounter issues to let us know. We've encountered some issues in terms of the system that we've rectified, but there are still some improvements that we need to make every single day to make the system as best we can whilst we get through the next few months. But as I say, our ticketing team, Lucy, has done a phenomenal job in difficult circumstances with this, and we encourage anyone with any issues to either tweet the ticket group or to email the tickets at leytonorient.net. We have a 24-hour, one working day email response, and they've been adhering to that and better in many occasions. So if you've got an issue, please let us know. But I apologise that we have had some issues for the reasons we've just given.
Yeah, just to stick on ticketing as well, a slightly different question, but one from Stephen Gower. It's one that I know is pretty bit frustrating to yourself and the board, was how do you solve the problem of a sellout crowd being only 2/3 of the ground's actual capacity? We saw that with the football for a fiver, where people couldn't get a ticket, but yet the number that we announced was, I'm sure, a bit of a disappointing one.
Yeah, absolutely. For the reasons that Nigel gave, we probably had 1 in 2 season card holders didn't come to the game Tuesday. Now, if I was in Essex, where a number of our fans are, or Hertfordshire, wherever it is, and I'd seen that downpour at 4:30, I'm not sure that a number of fans would have thought, I'm not sure if this is even going to be on. But thanks to Colin and others, the game was on, and it very quickly drained. But it is a concern. Yeah, we do have a number of fans, especially for those football for a fiver games. We really encourage season card holders to tell us if they're not turning up for those games. But ultimately, people will buy tickets in the hope that they can bring their aunt or uncle or son or daughter, and at the last minute they change their mind. So it's a nice problem to have, but it does create a problem. So we have to steward for a sellout, and it means we can't sell those tickets that we know, frustratingly, there'll be people outside that would bite their arm off to buy that ticket.
Well, another question that might lead nicely onto that, and people that might be biting those proverbial arms off, is someone's asked about how will we be marketing the new properties being built that are opposite the West Stand. And I know if anyone's come on a match day, they'll see the construction that's just popped up. Yeah,
we're excited about the development when that is finished, which will be 2 to 3 years before it really gets into fruition. But it'll be in the next year that people start to move in as our neighbours. We're really excited about that development. There's some elements of that development that will really, really, not just the residents that are going to be there. I think there was a stat, I haven't got it to hand, but something like 10,000 residents are moving within a walking distance to the Bradgate Stadium in the next few years. Boy, is that an opportunity that the person that steps into my shoes is going to be able to take advantage of. And you, obviously yourself, Luke, and Jake, who's our marketing manager, what an opportunity that provides, not just for new supporters, but for supporters to become season card holders, and for those residents to visit the Bradgate Stadium on a non-match day to come and have a beer, perhaps have a coffee, etc., etc. Massive opportunity. We will be engaging with that audience night and day to encourage them and welcome in as our new neighbours.
Yeah, it's interesting. The council, we learned a lot today. They're talking about putting a big screen over there. Neil, do you want to just talk about some of the things they were talking to us about, which was very exciting?
Yes, of course. So I think the first thing to say is that we are already working with Taylor Wimpey. Some of you might have noticed that they were the match ball sponsor on Tuesday evening. So we've got Danny and I with Josh. I've got a good relationship with them already, and we obviously want to build that up. They're going to be on site for construction, but they also have a long lease on the land, so they're going to be around for a long time. And at the middle part of the site, so really opposite Coronation Gardens, is going to be a thing called the Coronation Square, which is similar in idea to what the council have just done outside the town hall with fountains and stuff like that. But they're going to have commercial areas around it with a market hall at the back. And they really want it to become a destination for Leyton. At the moment, obviously, Leyton hasn't got a town centre as such. It's got a high road, which is very long, but it hasn't got anything where people can congregate. And I think that's the idea of this area. So it's going to have 20, 30 units selling everything, and it's going to have a market hall. And on match days, they want to work with the club to really bring that alive and to have that as a fan zone in some form. So yes, there's some really good conversations to be had. That's not going to be happening until about 2024. So we've got a few years to plan all that and work that through. But it's a good question about the residents. There's going to be some really good opportunities there.
Just to stick with attendances and trying to bring people in, a couple of questions about ticketing and pricing, and someone said, personally don't think the price point of match tickets is maximising revenue or attendances. Why are we so expensive, particularly compared to clubs in League One? Many in the local community of Leyton feel priced out.
Yeah, we benchmark our prices not just against other London clubs. I don't mean benchmark ourselves against Chelsea or Arsenal. I mean benchmark at similar sized clubs as well as geographically sized clubs. And we are competitive. The reality is our prices are a lot cheaper when you buy in advance. We've got obviously the football for £5, which entices many people in. And the reality is our season cards are phenomenal value, perhaps too cheap for the reasons we've just given. We have people that perhaps buy tickets that don't come, but we believe that our ticket pricing is where it needs to be. We've got to become a sustainable football club, and that's not just by putting prices up, but that's providing entertaining football. And I think this season we've provided phenomenal value. I'd love to see what the per pound goal ratio that Martin's been able to deliver us with Kenny and Joe. But I'd like to see that stat. For us, it's about increasing the entertainment value. And again, over the next couple of months, and whoever steps in the shoes alongside yourself and Jake, we really want to take it up a level in terms of the entertainment that takes place off the pitch to complement what happens on the pitch.
Yeah, obviously mentioned about great home performances at the weekend, and obviously we've been into a lot of positive stats, and someone's asked a question for Nigel, and that question is, Mr. Travis, do you understand any of the mumbo jumbo that Cowley Parry puts on Twitter?
Wow, this is a question I can't I can't fail to get wrong. Okay, so the first thing I would say is
this is a great question.
Yeah, no, it is. But I think I'm going to have a good answer now that I've managed to stumble and mumble for about a minute.
There's a time limit on your answer, you know.
Well, no. You're not in your home country anymore, Nick. You're in the East End of London, though I'm in the West End of London. All right. So the answer is, back in 1978, when I was doing my coaching, I remember I had an FA Cup match. And I went out with a tape recorder and I recorded player number 4 passed the ball to player number 8. And I tracked all this down. And I went home and charted it all. That was the start of statistics as far as I could see in football. I used those statistics. We played the team. We shut down number 8 on the team, everything went through. And I remember thinking at the time, football has a huge opportunity. Now, it's come a long way. And we started bringing in a lot of analytics over the last 3 to 4 years. Cowley has kind of, just by his sheer knowledge of it, made us look at it even more so. All of us, I think, have become much more aware of it. For those who are real sports fans, and I mean all sports, there's a magazine called The Athletic that we all read every day. They stole some of the best journalists in the world, and they do have an analytics section on every sport. I mean, as everyone on this call probably knows, I love American football. A lot of analytics there. I was intrigued earlier this week that the English team, and they probably got it wrong, wouldn't name their final team until they'd really studied the pitch and the analytics that worked on the batsman they were facing. So analytics have a big role to play, not only in the recruitment of players, but also the way you play the game. And Joe, who I mentioned earlier, has done a great job for us, and we will continue to do it. Kenny produces his own stats as well. So the answer is, I've learned a lot from Cowley. I think we're all very focused on things like expected goals now. So it's been a learning and it's been a positive experience. Cowley, how was that?
You said expected goals, so that wipes everything else you said clear, and everything's good. That's the foundation upon which you can build. So congratulations, you have passed and made it on to the next round of statistics.
Well, and I won't get any stick from Nick, right?
Yeah. I think just to interact with the stats and I think what people got to understand is, someone like myself who's long in the tooth, who's 55, and Kenny who's 59. We could turn around and say, well, it was always done this way, and the old is good. But what I think the art of being a good football club is to realise there's good in the new, i.e. stats, etc., and there's good in the old, the morals and how it goes. I think the art of any football club to be successful is to marry the two together, and that's what we have to do. So it's sometimes when you see a Cowley equation, it can be confusing, but if you sit down and speak to Cowley, he'll explain to what it is. And yeah, look, there's good in the old, there's good in the new. The art is to marry it together, and I think we're doing a fine job at the moment. I think we can get better in both departments, and I think that's always the drive.
Yeah, we've come a long way, and I'm really excited about it. And the old ways and the new ways are one and the same. 95% of the data and the analytics is going to tell you what you kind of already know. The trick is finding some little tidbit in the 5% that surprises you, and then listening to it. But again, a lot of times you're just looking at data that says like, yeah, they played crap the other day. I know that. I don't need the data to tell me that. Or the last game would say that we played it amazingly well. And over the last, 4 out of the 5 last league matches, we've, dominated clubs. And it's really exciting. The data just backs that up, but everybody else can see that when we win 4-1, 4-0. So we've come a long way. I think that there's an advantage to be had. I know that there's an advantage to be had if we can marry the two, and we're working on it every single day.
Yeah, and I think where it's big, Luke, is recruitment. People don't give it. I mean, we talk about winning games of football, obviously, but if you don't recruit successfully, when you talked about the 2 strikers, Drin and Smith coming in, both on free transfers and they're scoring goals. I mean, I'm sort of blowing my own trumpet here, but like someone like Macaulay Bond coming on a free transfer, and we sell him for what we sold him. He scores over 20 goals. It ain't all plain sailing, but the stats within the recruitment side of things now, we've actually got a recruitment analyst in Mike, who Mike Steele, who shows us the recruitment tools. And what it allows us to do is it makes the recruitment a lot easier, because if you've got, say, a pool of 20 players, by having the statistics, it can really narrow it down and make. I still feel that to watch them with your own eyes is massively important. We've got scouts doing that, but it makes the job of going to watch them with your own eyes a lot easier, because there's a lot less players to go and watch, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. moving on, and obviously, I think it was earlier this week, the club announced about a change of kit supply, moving over to Puma from the start of the 22-23 season. So, Danny, if you want to tell us a bit about why we've changed that kit supplier. Obviously, also a bit wary of time. I think we're looking to finish up in the next 15 minutes or so. So I think as we go through these, try and keep them brief where possible.
Yep, so very quick answer. Thank you to the support that New Balance have and give us. We will be moving on to Puma following an extensive tender process for the start of next season. The designs of those kits are signed off, and we're quite excited about those designs. And I look forward to actually, I suppose I'll have to buy one, won't I, suppose, when it comes out next season. But yeah, I think people will like what's to come. The quality's good, and they're customised to Orient, the home shirt and the away shirt. And yeah, we look forward to unveiling that, as well as the training wear and leisure wear that will be modelled beautifully by Martin. I think we're going to use him as the cover star for it. So look out.
Probably sell a few then. The only on the back of that, someone asked as well: is there any chance of fans, doing voting for the kits and voting for potential designs?
Yeah, same we discussed with Puma. Obviously, when you switch to a kit supplier, you can't do that in the first year because you can't reveal the manufacturer, etc. And there's a number of ways that we'll be looking. And again, that will be something I can say yes, can't I? Because whoever comes in my shoes then got to do it. So yeah, we'll look to look to do that. And if not, it'll be Lucy retail and ticket manager's problem and yours as well. So yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah. Just sticking with you, Danny, and a question we've had from a supporter called Derek, and he's asked, with the stadium becoming cashless, are you concerned at all that on a match day card machines will fail and nobody will be able to buy food and drink or purchase merchandise? The reason I ask this is most of the time season ticket machines at the turnstiles do not work and the attendants merely check the card.
Yeah, so on those scanners that are in the turnstiles, they're obviously part of our ticketing system. And I just want to clarify, as a lot of people sort of said, if I'm not scanned, does it mean I'm not counted? Yes, you are, because when a turnstile is the turnstile click that counts the people. By law, we have to do that. In terms of our cashless, we moved to cashless for many reasons: to save money, to speed up the process, and for it to be as hygienic as possible, predominantly to speed up the process. We've upgraded our Wi-Fi with our partner's business IP, and our Wi-Fi is as strong as it could possibly be. Can I say it will never ever go down? I can't say that, but it's been robust, and the issue that the scanners is completely separate from the Wi-Fi, and it's as secure and as safe and as reliable as we can have it.
Brilliant. Back on the pitch matters, and one from Martin and potentially Nigel as well, and that's a question from his name's not there, but will the money received from the FA Cup run be invested back into the squad in January, and if so, in what positions?
I think that we don't ever put transfer fees or cut money as part of the playing budget, but does it make it easier for Nigel and the board to say yes when we ask for positions in January? The answer, I'm pretty sure, is yes. It's always been that way. So look, it's position-wise, I feel that we've talked a lot about no cover of a natural right back. I think that's one of the areas we're looking at. I think there's the area of creative midfielder, another midfield player to come in. I think is something we're going to look at. And we've also got to look at, in terms of the free loan players that we've got, there is a January review in each of their deals. So Theo Archibald, Alex Mitchell and Teresa Amatoy have all got a January review. Now we've had initial talks with their clubs and everything looks very, very positive in that area. But it'd be a miss of us if we ain't prepared if something of them three doesn't stay. So I would say that if you said to me there's two pieces of money that you can go and spend, I think it would be a cover right back, because I think if Tom James is not fit, we have to move somebody to go and play there that it ain't their best position. And a creative midfielder, obviously, again, we know we've took Callum Riley in and we've not seen anything of him. He's going to be and Nigel spoke to him yesterday, and I spoke to him today. He's looking to be back on the training pitch in the end of January, but it's hard to get excited by Callum or Paul Smith, if I'm totally honest at the moment, because we haven't seen them. All I know, they're both very, very good players, and they would be 2 additions to the squad. But yeah, I think that the cup run, and Nigel has talked through it, but I think the cup run and money that's made from cup run or transfers just makes the purse strings or the pockets a bit looser. Over to you, Nigel.
I think Martin actually summed it up. We try and be flexible and, recognise that we've got another COVID issue now to deal with. But in the summer, as we were rebuilding the squad, we increased the budget. I think it was 3 times. I think I've said this before. So we went up, and the transfer committee felt that was appropriate 3 times. So we've shown flexibility all the way through. But I think one thing I'd kind of push back on everyone, at some stage, people need to understand that sustainability from a financial point of view isn't just spending as much as you can. We have to look at our costs as well. We have to be balanced. By the way, it's great for me. I'd love to go out and spend even more money because I'm a fan first and foremost. I mean, I'm probably the typical fan-led person. So yes, we've always been flexible, but the good thing is we've got a lot of sensible people who are on the transfer committee, like Cowley and Kent and Matt, who now chairs the transfer committee. And we debate all these things, but we've shown flexibility all the way through.
Thank you, Nigel. Obviously, we had a lot of questions on YouTube as well, so I'll try and get through a few of these. One which is about programs, actually, which I can answer. And Daniel's asked, can you ask why our program is now 350 and has less content in it than last season? And there's a lot more adverts compared to other clubs. And he also followed that up by saying, is a club going to keep it going forward, as some clubs have scrapped it? And Northampton, they're people outside of card machines to take payment. Can we not do that? So to start on the first side of things, we looked at the price in the summer, and I think it had been £3 since around 2005. So we're looking at about 16 years, and it had been quite a flat fee. And obviously the margins had gone up every year, so the club wasn't seeing any kind of real revenue return, or certainly to the level we probably would have liked. If you think back to 2005, 2006, more people would have been buying it, and at a price where we would have been making more money. So the program has changed a lot since that time. I think the what clubs use programs for has changed a lot. So actually, you mentioned about advertising there. I think our program is about 15 pages of adverts from a 60-page program. So about 25%, which would probably be kind of in line with what other clubs are doing. So we do okay from programs. We've had some disappointing sales from the Swindon and Tranmere game, where we barely made any money on those 2 games. So it does kind of depend based on attendances, and we can see some good swings in that. But we also are trying very hard to make them worthwhile and make them sustainable. So that was part of the reasoning behind kind of adding that additional 50p or so, because we think over those years it probably helped to kind of help push those margins up. And we are doing things like the illustrated covers as well, so there are other costs there. So we are looking at ways to kind of keep improving that. And with regards to card machines, that's something we tried to do in the summer. I think, Danny, correct me if I'm wrong, but the overheads to actually do that were pretty sky high.
Yeah, they will follow, but what we wanted to do is make sure we could walk before we could run. So certainly for next season that they will be in place. I think when programs were for £3, that was when Martin was playing. But I thought when Martin was playing, stuff was in shillings and pence.
Yeah. 2006 was a long time ago. That's what I think that might have been a promotion year somehow. I'm not sure.
Oh, you got us promoted, Martin.
Looking for some more YouTube comments. One from Dean asking if we could have some mini stalls around the ground, Danny, with winter products like gloves and scarves and masks. I guess obviously going into the club shop on match day could be a little bit out of the way. Is there possible for kind of like additional stands around the ground?
Yeah, we have purchased a mobile retail unit. So as well as applying, if you've got the qualifications for my job, if there is anyone out there that wants a part-time role on retail on match day, we will very much welcome applications. Details on the website, because we I'll be honest, we're struggling for a resource in certain areas of the club for match day staff, and that's one of them. So encourage fans that might have a college boy or girl or university or looking for sort of part-time work, because boy, yeah, we want to get out there selling hats, gloves, etc., in the coming weeks, because we've invested in this unit, but we need the right staff to be able to do that, and we will hopefully soon get that.
Another YouTube comment is from Karen, who's asked about the academy playing in the FA Youth Cup on Sunday, and did we take an allocation of tickets? I don't know if you know the answer to that one, Danny. I know we have shared obviously online where you can buy tickets and they're available in the club shop. Is there anything to add to that?
No, as far as I'm aware, it's pretty much a free for all in terms of that, and again, encourage fans that can travel over to Southwest London, if you call it that, then encourage you to do that, because they're going to need that support. It's going to be a tough game, but hopefully one that Orient fans can embrace and enjoy.
Absolutely. Again, there's some more on tickets on YouTube, but I think we've kind of covered that area pretty well. Timing wise, I think we're looking towards kind of the ending of tonight's Q&A. So I don't know if to hand back to Nigel, if there was any areas you wanted to address, or any kind of closing messages for the night.
Yeah, I mean, I think these sessions are what all clubs should be doing, and I'm not sure they do it as openly as we do at most clubs, but we try and be as open as possible. I think a few takes that I've heard tonight, we've clearly got a bit of an issue with people not turning up, and it was interesting. I played golf this afternoon with my brother, who I hadn't seen in a long time, and he was supposed to come Tuesday night, and I said, so why didn't you come? Well, I'm worried about mixing with all those people. I think this is probably the underlying issue. So that's the first thing. I think this ticket system, we've heard enough. I've been on numerous calls with Green 4. They've been overall effing useless. So we need to sort that. And just to be slightly defensive here, when I was running Dunkin', we had a software provider who got sold 4 times, because that's what happens with these technology companies. And every time it was a major problem. So, I think the situation is not unique, but we need to jump on it. And I think you've heard from us that we're all very enthusiastic about the team. We haven't really talked about it, but Kenny is unbelievable. I mean, I was hearing it today. He went home. He was talking to me, wasn't he, Martin, about 10:20?
Yeah.
He went home and watched the game twice. I mean, we have got someone who is very focused, very professional, unbelievably hardworking. And I think I said this the other night to a few of the fans. If you go and listen to a team talk, even if you couldn't play football, you would know what you're supposed to do. He is so crystal clear. And I think his clarity has added so much to this club. So compliments to Martin for finding him, bringing him in. But I think genuinely he likes it here, and he's made some really complimentary comments about the people we have, the way we do things. So it's all working very well. So I feel very confident. So I think, Luke, I'll end on that. I think I'd encourage people, despite all the problems, to go to Stoke. We've still got quite a few league games to play before the end of the year. I'm looking forward to seeing 3 of those over the next few weeks. So up the O's, and thank you as always to everyone for their questions. And we do try and listen. Thank you.
Yeah, before we hang up, because I've been listening, we talked about the match on Saturday. We talked about tickets. We talked about COVID. If people, I changed my flight so I can go. We want as many people to come to the Youth Cup match on Sunday, but please look at the website, because Chelsea has very specific requirements, including vaccination requirements and certain procedures for buying tickets. So we hope a lot of people come out, but please read the website, get your tickets in advance, bring your Vax cards so that you don't make a long schlep and get disappointed.
Just to go down with that as well, I mean, just for instance, today, I mean, I'm double vaxxed, so I downloaded off the NHS app that my COVID pass. People that wasn't double vaxxed, you got to do a lateral flow test and put it on there as well. So, yeah, make sure, just as Nick said, that you read what you got to have to get through that turnstile at Chelsea, because it's more complicated than coming into the Leyton Orient ground, that's for sure.
Yeah, and we'll make sure to share that again on social media so everyone can have a look at that information. But that's us done for tonight. Obviously, we look to do these kind of events at least twice a year. I think we try and do them a bit more regularly than that. If there's any questions that you did want asked that weren't answered today, then reach out to the club and we can answer them privately. But for now, thanks for joining us, and we'll